The chains were too tight, but Ethan Cole had stopped feeling his wrists hours ago. The holding pen stank of fear and unwashed bodies. 43 humans crammed into a space meant for cargo. Through the energy barrier, he could see the marketplace beyond. A sprawling alien station where species he'd never imagined haggled over technology, weapons, and slaves. Maya Torres pressed against the barrier beside him, her face pale but her jaw set. They'd been navigators together on the colony ship Meridian before the Vrakth cruisers tore it apart. Now they were merchandise. "Next lot," a mechanical voice announced. The barrier dropped. Armored guards shoved 10 humans forward onto a raised platform beneath harsh lights. Ethan recognized the captain's daughter, barely 19, trembling as alien eyes studied her from below. The bidding lasted 90 seconds. A reptilian merchant bought her for mining labor. She screamed as they dragged her away. "We stay together," Maya whispered. "Whatever happens." Ethan wanted to promise her that, but he'd seen the others separated, families torn apart, children sold to different bidders. The Vrakth didn't care about human bonds. Their turn came too soon. The guards herded Ethan, Maya, and 6 others onto the platform. The auctioneer's voice droned through the translation implant forced into Ethan's skull during processing. "Prime specimens. Healthy. Suitable for labor, experimentation, entertainment." Below, the crowd shifted. Most bidders were Vrakth, towering figures in dark armor with faces like angular stone. Their empire had been at war with humanity for 3 years, ever since first contact went catastrophically wrong. They saw humans as weak, primitive, fit only for exploitation. One Vrakth stood apart from the others. She was massive even by their standards, nearly 8 feet tall, her armor decorated with rank insignia Ethan didn't recognize. Her face was sharp and predatory, with eyes that gleamed like polished obsidian. When she stepped forward, other bidders moved aside. She pointed at Ethan, then at Maya. Her voice cut through the crowd noise. "Together." The auctioneer hesitated. "Honored Kelira, standard practice is individual." "I said both." Her hand moved to the weapon at her hip. "Name your price." The transaction took less than a minute. Ethan felt Maya's hand find his as guards unlocked their platform restraints and fitted them with control collars. The Vrakth warrior Kelira watched without expression as they were brought before her. Up close, she was even more intimidating. Scars marked her armor and the exposed portions of her neck. This was someone who'd seen serious combat. "Walk," she commanded, turning toward the exit. Her hand hovered near a control device that could activate their collars, with agonizing results. They walked. Kelira's ship was a sleek military vessel docked in the station's high-security section. She led them aboard without speaking, past crew stations and weapon racks, into a compartment that looked like living quarters. Spacious, clean, nothing like the slave pens Ethan had expected. She sealed the door and turned to face them. For a long moment she simply stared, her alien features unreadable. Then she reached for her belt and pulled out the control device for their collars. Ethan tensed, but instead of activating them, she crushed the device in her massive hand. Sparks flew. The collars around their necks went dark and loose. "Remove them," Kelira said quietly. Maya moved first, fumbling with the clasp. Ethan followed. The collars clattered to the floor. "You're confused," Kelira said. It wasn't a question. She moved to a wall panel and pulled out a container of water, offering it. "Drink. You need it." Ethan didn't move. "What do you want from us?" "The truth." Kelira settled onto a bench designed for her larger frame, her posture relaxing slightly. "I want to understand why your species fights the way you do. Why you don't surrender even when defeat is certain. Why you choose death over submission." "We value freedom," Maya said, her voice hoarse. She took the water container and drank deeply before passing it to Ethan. "Freedom." Kelira tested the word. "My people have a different word for what you call freedom. They call it chaos, disorder. They believe structure and hierarchy bring strength. They believe the strong should rule the weak, and that dominance is the natural order." "And you?" Ethan asked. "What do you believe?" Kelira's eyes darkened. I believed what I was taught. I served my empire with honor. I commanded ships, won battles, enforced order. She paused. Then they killed my brother for asking the same questions you're asking now. The compartment fell silent, except for the hum of the ship's systems. His name was Torres, Kelira continued. He was a scientist, not a warrior. He studied your species after early encounters. He became convinced that humanity possessed something my people had lost, something valuable. He presented his findings to the High Command. Her hands clenched. They declared him corrupted, executed him for intellectual treason. I was ordered to witness. Maya set down the water container. I'm sorry. Don't be. Kelira stood abruptly. His death taught me that my empire fears what it cannot control. Your resilience, your innovation, your refusal to accept their version of order. She moved to the viewport, gazing out at the station beyond. I purchased you because I'm part of a network. We call ourselves the Fractured. Vrakth who believe this war is wrong, who want to find another way. Ethan's mind raced. You're resistance fighters. We're heretics, Kelira corrected. And we're few, but we do what we can. I use my rank and resources to buy human prisoners when possible, then transport them to neutral territories where they can be recovered by your people. She turned back to them. But I need your help. With what? Maya asked. Coordination. There are other humans scattered across this sector, held by different Vrakth officers. If we're going to evacuate them before the coming offensive, we need intelligence on their locations and an understanding of human communication methods the Vrakth haven't intercepted. Coming? Offensive? Ethan's pulse quickened. Kelira pulled up a holographic display. Star charts appeared, showing fleet movements. Your military is planning a major counterattack against this sector. 3 weeks, perhaps 4. When they arrive, any humans still in captivity will be executed to prevent rescue. We're running out of time. Maya studied the display. How many prisoners are we talking about? In this sector, nearly 2,000. Most are held on labor stations or research facilities. Some are in private hands, like you were supposed to be. Kelira zoomed in on the station outside. This facility alone holds 400 in the lower processing levels. That's impossible, Ethan said. Even if we knew where they all were, how would we move that many people? One step at a time. Kelira deactivated the display. First, we need to know if you're willing. This will be dangerous. If we're discovered, all 3 of us will be executed. The Vrakth do not forgive betrayal. Ethan looked at Maya. He saw his own thoughts reflected in her eyes. They'd survived the destruction of the Meridian, survived processing in the slave markets. They'd watched their friends torn away and sold to fates unknown. If there was even a chance to save some of them, to strike back against the empire that had destroyed everything they knew, how could they refuse? We're in, Maya said. Kelira's expression shifted, something that might have been relief crossing her alien features. Then we begin immediately. This compound where we're going, it's my private estate on the station's upper levels. You'll have freedom of movement within its walls, but outside you must maintain the appearance of captives. Other Vrakth cannot suspect our arrangement. What about other humans? Ethan asked. If there are 400 on this station, we need to make contact. Carefully, Kelira warned. The Vrakth monitor all slave quarters, but I have access to maintenance schedules and guard rotations. There are brief windows when communication might be possible. She moved toward the door. For now, rest. Eat. Recover your strength. Tomorrow your real work begins. The compound was a fortress built into the station's hull, a sprawling complex of chambers and corridors designed for Vrakth proportions. Kelira gave them their own quarters, smaller than hers but still larger than any crew cabin Ethan had occupied on the Meridian. Real beds. Climate control. A waste facility. Luxuries they'd thought lost forever. But luxury wasn't freedom, and Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of being trapped, even in a gilded cage. Maya found him standing at the viewport that night, staring out at the stars beyond the station. Can't sleep either? Thinking about the others, he admitted. Wondering which of them are still alive? She joined him at the viewport. Kelira's taking a massive risk. If her own people find out what she's doing, she'll die, Ethan finished. just like her brother. And maybe she thinks that's worth it, making his death mean something. Or maybe she's just looking for redemption. Does it matter? Maya asked. She's the only chance we've got. Before Ethan could respond, an alarm shrieked through the compound. Red lights pulsed along the corridor outside their quarters. Kelira's voice boomed through the communication system. Remain in your quarters. Do not emerge for any reason. Through the viewport, Ethan saw ships maneuvering near the docking ports. Military vessels, their hulls marked with high command insignia. What's happening? Maya breathed. The answer came minutes later when Kelira burst into their quarters, her face grim. Inspection. High Command is conducting random audits of officer estates looking for unauthorized activity. When they arrive, you are my property, nothing more. You do not speak unless ordered. You do not make eye contact. If they suspect anything unusual, they will interrogate all three of us until they find the truth. Ethan's stomach dropped. What do they know? Nothing yet, but the Fractured lost a cell last week. 17 members exposed and executed. Command is sweeping every station, every compound, looking for more traitors. Kelira pulled out 2 control collars, new ones. You must wear these. I'm sorry, but there's no other way to maintain the deception. Maya took hers, without hesitation. Ethan followed her lead, the metal cold against his throat. This time, when Kelira activated them, the familiar weight of control settled back into place. Follow my lead, Kelira said. And remember, you're terrified captives who've been broken by Vrakth discipline. Nothing more. The inspection team arrived with clinical efficiency. 5 Vrakth officers, their armor pristine, their eyes cold with authority. The leader was a male named Arctis, his rank insignia marking him as a High Inquisitor. Commander Kelira, Arctis said, his voice like grinding stone. A pleasure. I trust you understand the necessity of these proceedings. Of course, Inquisitor. Kelira stood at attention, every inch the loyal officer. My compound is open for your review. Ethan and Maya knelt in the corner where Kelira had positioned them, heads bowed, wrists bound. The posture made Ethan's skin crawl, but he held it. Maya trembled beside him, and he realized she wasn't faking it. The terror was real. Arctis moved through the compound with methodical precision, scanning systems, reviewing logs, questioning Kelira about her activities. His team searched every chamber, every storage unit, looking for evidence of treason. When Arctis reached the chamber where Ethan and Maya knelt, he stopped. Human specimens. Most officers prefer automated labor. These two have unique value, Kelira said smoothly. They were navigators on a colony vessel. Their knowledge of human star charts and fleet movements may prove useful for intelligence gathering. Have they provided useful intelligence? Not yet. They're still being conditioned to obedience. Humans are stubborn creatures. Arctis circled Ethan and Maya like a predator studying prey. Stand, he commanded. They rose on shaking legs. Arctis studied them with clinical detachment. Have you been treated well by Commander Kelira? Ethan kept his eyes down. Yes, Master. Good. Arctis turned back to Kelira. See that they remain useful. The High Command has little patience for officers who waste resources on pets. The inspection lasted 2 more hours. When Arctis and his team finally departed, Kelira sealed the compound doors and sagged against the wall, the first sign of weakness Ethan had seen from her. That was too close, she said quietly. They're tightening security across all sectors. We need to accelerate our timeline. Maya removed the control collar with shaking hands. How? You said we had weeks. We had weeks before that cell was compromised. Kelira pulled up her secure communication array. Now we have days at most. The fractured network is fragmenting under pressure. If we don't act soon, the entire resistance will collapse. Ethan moved to the array, studying the data streams. His navigator training kicked in, pattern recognition overlaying the chaos. These communication logs, they're tracking signal origins. If Command is monitoring this closely, any contact with other prisoners will be flagged immediately. Then we need a different approach, Kelira said. Physical contact, direct recruitment, risky but untraceable. The maintenance schedules you mentioned, Can you get us access to the lower processing levels? Kelira considered. Possibly. There's a rotation change in 48 hours. I could requisition you as temporary labor for facility inspection. It would give you perhaps 30 minutes in the processing levels before questions are asked. 30 minutes to contact 400 prisoners and organize an evacuation. Ethan shook his head. We'd need weeks just to explain the situation. Not all 400, Maya said. Just the right ones. People with leadership experience, military training, technical skills. We find them, brief them, let them spread the word through their own networks. The Vrakth can monitor communications, but they can't monitor every conversation between slaves. It was probably insane. But Ethan couldn't see another option. We'll need a code phrase, something that identifies us as friendly without raising suspicion if a guard overhears. Kelira's eyes gleamed. My brother used to say something when we were young, a phrase from an old Vrakth teaching about the value of choosing one's own path. In your language, it translates roughly to, the chain breaks twice, first in the mind. That works, Maya said. Anyone who responds positively, who understands what it means, they're someone we can trust. The next 48 hours were spent in careful planning. Kelira used her access to review prisoner records, identifying humans with relevant backgrounds, former military officers, engineers, medics, ship crew. The processing levels held more valuable personnel than Ethan had dared hope. When the rotation change came, Kelira escorted them through the station's inner corridors with professional detachment, 2 human slaves being brought to inspect labor conditions. Guards barely glanced at them. To the Vrakth, humans were beneath notice unless they caused problems. The processing levels were worse than the marketplace. Rows of holding cells stretched into the distance, each one packed with prisoners. The stench of desperation hung thick in the recycled air. Vrakth overseers walked the catwalks above, watching for any sign of resistance. Kelira led them past cells with practiced indifference, occasionally stopping to inspect conditions, while Ethan and Maya pretended to check equipment. But in those brief stops, Ethan made contact. A woman in her 50s, former Marine Corps major. The chain breaks twice, Ethan whispered through the cell barrier, first in the mind. She stared at him, then understanding dawned. And then in reality, she whispered back, What do you need? Organization. Communication. When the time comes, your people need to be ready to move fast. Can you spread the word? Give me 48 hours. They moved on. A young man, engineering specialist from a mining colony. An older couple, former ship captains. A teenager who'd been a resistance fighter before capture. Each contact was brief, seconds at most. But the message spread like fire through dry grass. The chain breaks twice. By the time Kelira led them back to the compound, they'd made contact with 17 prisoners across multiple cell blocks. 17 who could reach hundreds more. Well? Kelira asked once they were secure. It's working, Maya said. But we need an extraction plan. Even if everyone's ready to move, where do they go? This station has enough Vrakth military personnel to lock down every corridor in minutes. Kelira pulled up the station schematics. There are emergency evacuation pods scattered throughout the facility, designed for Vrakth use in case of catastrophic failure. If we could trigger a station-wide alert, create enough chaos, the pods could be used to evacuate prisoners. How many pods? Ethan asked. Enough for perhaps 500 individuals, assuming we can access them all simultaneously. Kelira highlighted the pod locations, but there's a problem. The pods are biometrically locked to Vrakth officers. Only authorized personnel can activate them. Your authorized personnel, Maya pointed out. I'm one person. I can't be in 40 different locations at once. Kelira zoomed in on the security systems, unless we override the lockouts entirely. That would require access to the central security hub, which is in the command sector. Maximum security. Impossible to infiltrate. Ethan studied the schematics, his navigator's mind working through the geometry of the problem. Not impossible. Difficult. We'd need a distraction, something big enough to pull security forces away from the command sector, and we need technical expertise to handle the override once we're inside. I can handle the technical side, Maya said. Give me access to the security systems. In 15 minutes I can unlock those pods. The distraction is the challenge, Kelira said. It would have to be catastrophic enough to justify deploying most of the station's security forces. What about the human fleet? Ethan asked. You said they were planning an offensive. If we could signal them, give them our exact location and timing, they could create the distraction we need. Kelira's expression shifted to something like hope. The fractured network still has access to some long-range communication arrays. If we transmit it on human military frequencies with proper authentication codes— I have authentication codes, Maya interrupted. Navigator's emergency protocols. Every senior crew member on the Meridian was given them in case of capture. If the fleet is monitoring, they'll respond. It was insane. It required perfect timing, flawless execution, and an enormous amount of luck. But it was the best chance they had. Then we commit, Kelira said. I'll reach out to the fractured network, arrange access to a communication array. Maya, you'll transmit the signal. Ethan, you'll coordinate with the prisoner leadership. Make sure everyone knows when to move. We do this in 72 hours. 72 hours to change everything. The plan came together with terrifying speed. Kelira secured access to a communication array through a fractured contact, a technician named Voris who'd lost his entire family to high command purges. Maya prepared her transmission, encoding fleet coordinates and timing into a burst message that would punch through Vrakth jamming. Ethan worked with the prisoner network, passing instructions through the chain of contacts they'd established. When the moment comes, be ready to move. The chain breaks twice, first in the mind, then in reality. But plans built on desperation rarely survive contact with reality. On the second day, one of Kelira's fractured contacts was arrested during a routine security sweep. Under interrogation, he gave names, details of resistance operations across the sector. Kelira's name was on that list. The alert came at midnight, station time. Kelira burst into Ethan and Maya's quarters, her armor already sealed, weapons ready. They're coming. Full security team, arrest warrant issued. We have maybe 10 minutes before they breach the compound. Maya was on her feet instantly. The evacuation is happening now or never. Kelira tossed them combat gear, lighter armor designed for humans. The communication array is compromised, but there's a backup transmitter in my ship. If we can reach it, you can still send the signal, but we have to move immediately. Ethan sealed his armor, the unfamiliar weight settling across his shoulders. What about the prisoners? I've sent word through the network. They know to wait for the signal, but if we don't transmit it, they die in their cells when the fleet arrives. Kelira moved to the door, checking security feeds. The Vrakth won't risk recovered prisoners providing intelligence to your military. They'll execute everyone the moment your ships enter range. The sound of breaching charges echoed through the compound. The doors shuddered but held. Kelira had reinforced her defenses well, but they wouldn't last long against a determined assault. This way. Kelira led them through a side passage, a maintenance corridor she'd prepared for exactly this scenario. They ran through darkness, emergency lights casting red shadows. Behind them, the main doors exploded inward, shouts in the Vrakth language. The heavy thud of armored boots. They emerged in the docking bay, Kelira's ship waiting like a promise of escape. But between them and freedom stood a full security team, 20 armed Vrakth soldiers, and at their head stood a figure Ethan recognized with cold dread. Arctis, the High Inquisitor. Commander Kelira, Arctis said, his weapon trained on her. You are charged with treason against the Vrakth Empire. Surrender yourself and your human accomplices, and your death will be swift. Kelira didn't lower her weapon. I won't let you kill them, Arctis. I won't let you kill any of them. They are property, resources of the Empire. Their lives are not yours to preserve. They are people. Kelira's voice rang across the docking bay. Just as my brother was a person before you murdered him for daring to question your authority. Just as every being in this empire is a person, not a tool for your ambitions. Arctis's expression hardened. Your brother was weak, as are you. The empire is stronger for his removal, and it will be stronger still when you are gone. Kelira looked at Ethan and Maya. In that moment, something passed between them, an understanding that went beyond words. She had chosen them, protected them, risked everything for people her species had designated as lesser beings. Now it was time to choose her back. Go, Kelira said quietly. Get to the ship, send the signal. Not without you, Maya said. There's no time for this debate. Kelira's weapon hummed to life. I'll hold them. You run. That's an order. Arctis raised his hand, and 20 Vrakth soldiers leveled their weapons. No one is leaving this bay alive unless they surrender immediately. Ethan made a choice then, the kind of choice that defined everything that came after. He raised his own weapon, the unfamiliar Vrakth rifle heavy in his hands, and stood beside Kelira. Then I guess we're not surrendering. Maya moved to Kalira's other side. Together, or not at all. For the first time, Ethan saw something like genuine emotion on Kalira's alien features. Pride, gratitude, fear for them. You don't have to. Yes, Maya said, we do. The firefight erupted with devastating intensity. Kelira's first shot took Arctis in the shoulder, spinning him backward. Return fire lit up the docking bay, energy bolts scorching metal and sending sparks cascading. Ethan dove for cover behind a cargo container, his training taking over. Aim. Fire. Move. Don't think. Just act. Maya reached a control panel, her fingers flying across alien interfaces. Kelira had taught her the basics of Vrakth systems during their planning sessions. If she could override the bay doors, seal the entrance, buy them precious seconds. An explosion rocked the bay as one of Arctis's soldiers fired a heavy weapon. The cargo container Ethan was hiding behind disintegrated, throwing him across the floor. His armor absorbed most of the impact, but his vision blurred. Through the haze, he saw Kelira standing alone against impossible odds, her armor scored with hits, her weapon blazing. She was magnificent, terrifying. A warrior fighting not for conquest, but for something her people had forgotten how to value. Maya got the doors. They slammed shut with a thunderous boom, cutting the security team off from reinforcements. But there were still 15 Vrakth soldiers in the bay, and only 3 defenders. Arctis rose from where Kelira's first shot had dropped him, his armor auto-sealing the wound. You cannot win this, Kelira. Even if you kill every soldier here, the Empire will hunt you across the galaxy. You have chosen extinction. I've chosen principle, Kelira replied. Something you abandoned long ago. She charged. What happened next would stay with Ethan for the rest of his life. Kelira moved with brutal precision, her combat training unleashed in all its terrible glory. She killed 3 soldiers before they could react, her strikes lethal and efficient. But there were too many, and they adapted quickly, surrounding her, their weapons tearing into her armor. Ethan scrambled to his feet, firing at the soldiers trying to flank Kelira. Maya joined him, their shots wild but effective enough to draw fire away from their ally. The bay became a chaos of energy bolts and explosions, smoke obscuring vision, alarms, screaming. Arctis moved through the chaos toward Kelira, his weapon charged for a killing blow. Ethan saw it happening, saw the angle of attack, saw that Kelira was focused on the soldiers in front of her and wouldn't see the Inquisitor until too late. He didn't think. He ran. Ethan crashed into Arctis just as the Inquisitor fired. The energy bolt meant for Kelira's head instead scorching past her shoulder. The two of them went down in a tangle of limbs, Arctis's superior strength and size overwhelming. The Vrakth's hands closed around Ethan's throat, armor creaking under the pressure. Then Kelira was there, her massive fist connecting with Arctis's head with the force of a hammer blow. The Inquisitor's grip loosened. Kelira pulled Ethan free and brought her weapon around, pressing it against Arctis's chest. You taught me that strength defines right, Kelira said. So by your own philosophy, I am right, and you are wrong. She pulled the trigger. Arctis died without ceremony, his body crumpling to the deck. Around them, the remaining soldiers faltered, their leader gone. Maya's voice cut through the sudden silence. The bay's clear. We need to move now. They ran for Kelira's ship, leaving the bodies behind. The vessel's engines were already online, Kelira's automated systems preparing for emergency departure. They stumbled aboard, sealing the airlock as weapons fire from the station's defensive batteries began to pepper the hull. "Transmission array is active," Maya called from the communications station. "But we're not going to have long before they jam us or destroy the ship." "Then send it now." Kelira took the pilot's position, her hands flying across controls. The ship lurched free from the docking clamps, spinning toward open space. Outside the viewports, the station bristled with weapons, all of them turning toward the fleeing vessel. Maya transmitted the burst signal, authentication codes included, fleet coordinates and evacuation timing compressed into a single data packet. It shot through the void on human military frequencies, a desperate plea for help. Then the jamming hit. Communications going dark. Ethan strapped into a combat station, watching as the station's defense network lit up. Dozens of targeting locks, missile launches, energy weapons charging. "Hold on!" Kelira's voice was tight with concentration. She threw the ship into evasive maneuvers, her piloting skill the only thing keeping them alive. Missiles detonated around them, proximity blasts shaking the hull. An energy beam scored their port side, alarms shrieking. "We're not going to make it," Ethan said, watching the damage readouts climb into critical ranges. "Then we make them remember us," Kelira replied. She angled the ship not away from the station but toward it, charging directly at the central command hub. The Vrakth defenses tried to adjust, but Kelira was already inside their minimum engagement range, too close for the heavy weapons to track effectively. "What are you doing?" Maya asked, buying time. Kelira armed every weapon the ship had. "If the fleet received your signal, they'll be here soon. But the station will execute the prisoners the moment they detect human ships. Unless there's too much chaos to give the order." She fired everything. Missiles, energy cannons, kinetic rounds, all of it directed at the station's command sector. The explosions were spectacular, tearing through armor and systems, crippling coordination networks. Alarms blared across the station. Evacuation orders, damage reports, confusion spreading like a virus. And in that confusion, 400 human prisoners acted. Ethan watched on the sensor displays as the emergency pods launched, dozens of them, escaping from access points throughout the station. The prisoner network had been ready, waiting for their moment. When chaos erupted, they seized it. The station's defenses tried to stop the fleeing pods, but Kelira's attack had damaged targeting systems and overwhelmed the security forces. Pods scattered in all directions, each one carrying precious human lives toward freedom. "It's working," Maya breathed. "They're getting out." But Kelira's ship was dying, critical systems failing, hull breaches spreading. The station's defensive fire, disorganized as it was, still found its mark again and again. "Emergency pods," Kelira said. Her voice strained. "There are 2 left on this ship. Get to them." "What about you?" Ethan demanded. "Someone has to keep the ship on course, keep drawing fire." Kelira looked back at them. And despite everything, despite the alien features and the massive frame, Ethan saw someone who had become a friend. "Go, please." "No." Maya's voice was absolute. "We're not leaving you. Not after everything. You don't have a choice." The sensor array lit up with new contacts, massive signatures, emerging from faster-than-light transit at the edge of the system. Human ships, a full battle group, arriving precisely when Maya's transmission had told them to arrive. "They came," Ethan said, barely believing it. The fleet actually came. The human ships opened fire immediately, their weapons tearing into the station's defenses. Vrakth military vessels scrambled to respond, but they had been caught off guard, their attention divided between the fleeing prisoners and Kelira's rampage. A communication signal cut through the jamming, human military frequencies. "This is Captain Rivera of the UNS Defiance to all human personnel in the area. We are here for extraction. Transmit your locations and we will recover you." Maya grabbed the communications console. "Defiance. This is Navigator Maya Torres, formerly of the Meridian. We have approximately 400 prisoners in escape pods scattering from the station. They need immediate recovery." "Torres?" The voice on the other end held shock and relief. "We thought the entire crew was lost. Stand by. We're vectoring recovery ships to the pod locations now." What's your status? We're in a damaged Vrakth ship taking heavy fire. Hull integrity critical. And we've got a friendly on board. A pause. Say again. A friendly. Kelira spoke up, her voice carrying authority despite the ship's failing systems. This is Commander Kelira, formerly of the Vrakth Imperial Fleet. I request asylum with the human forces. I have intelligence on Vrakth military operations and can provide tactical support. Another pause. Longer this time. That's not a decision I can make in combat. Can you reach our position? Kelira checked her displays. Barely. If we burn everything we have left, then do it. We'll cover you. The UNS Defiance and her escort ships moved into formation, their weapons creating a corridor of fire that pushed back the Vrakth defenders. Kelira aimed her dying ship toward that corridor and pushed the engines to maximum, even as warnings screamed about imminent core failure. They weren't going to make it. Ethan could see it in the numbers, the distance versus their failing speed. They'd fall short by kilometers, and in space, that might as well be light years. Then Maya did something insane. Gamma Sow. She overrode the safety limiters on their remaining weapons and detonated them all at once, the explosion creating a massive thrust vector that sent the ship tumbling forward. They spun through vacuum, completely out of control but moving fast enough. Far enough. Human recovery ships caught them with tractor beams, pulling the wreckage into a landing bay aboard the Defiance. When the ship finally stopped moving, Ethan's entire body ached from the impacts and the stress. They were alive. Against every probability, they were alive. Human Marines met them as they stumbled out of the wrecked ship, weapons ready but not hostile. Kelira emerged last, her armor damaged but her posture proud. The Marines stared at her, this massive alien warrior who had fought beside humans against her own kind. Captain Rivera appeared, a stern woman in her 60s with calculating eyes. She studied Kelira for a long moment. "You're the Vrakth who helped evacuate our people." "I am," Kelira said simply.